like they were just reading right into it and just taking advantage of it. You can't, you can't make it. Half of your plays just deep balls. It's just. And Carroll City they were back there in double coverage waiting, and Deerfield they still threw the ball.
Wow.
So you don't do that against teams like Carroll City. You might get away with it against the Taravellas of the world, but it's not gonna work against Carroll City.
Okay. I definitely agree with that. Carroll City is usually a very loaded team.
But did you notice how many times Deerfield kept going deep and it just wasn't working, and they still kept trying it and trying it, just wasn't? Would you notice that?
To be honest, I haven't actually got a chance to go through and watch that game yet.
Right. Yeah, check it out. I don't know.
I definitely want to. I'm planning on checking that out as soon as I can, though. It's also more the Aquinas De La Salle game, because I got both those recorded. I got to catch myself up, which is going to be tough because now we got week 2 games coming up. I identified 3 games up here in North Florida. I would say it's a pretty decent slate of games. Not as deep as probably the past week was, though. Over the Panhandle, Crestview traveling to Escambia. This one might end up potentially being a battle for the best teams, out in the Panhandle area.
Sure. Yeah.
This one would be tough. Escambia's. I have experience with seeing us play a game at Emmitt Smith Field over there at Escambia. So I know it's not exactly an easy place to play. I've not gotten a chance to truly see Crestview in person before. I was hoping that last year when they did that 7v7 event that I get a chance to see them in action, even in a limited role, and they ended up not showing up. So I've still not got a chance to really see them outside of a couple Facebook clips and highlights. But from what I've heard, it doesn't sound like Crestview they may not be as strong this year as in the past probably 2 years have been. I wouldn't say a huge drop off. Escambia looks to be having a pretty good year. They're at home. I'm going to lean Escambia in a close one.
Okay, I'm going to agree with you with that.
All right. Columbia at Oakleaf. This was one we touched briefly on earlier. So, from what I've been able to figure out, Oakleaf apparently runs an offense very similar to us, with being the spread and trying to get players into the ball into playmakers' hands as best as possible. Of course, from what I've noticed in the past, Oakleaf does tend to give up a bit of yards, especially in the air. That may not be the best weakness to have, if that's still the case, when facing a team like Columbia, which even facing a loaded secondary last week was able to get over 200 yards passing. So you put that against a secondary that may not be as strong, and who knows how many yards they end up putting up. I gotta definitely I don't feel like this is gonna be a blowout. I think that I saw that Pinkos had this game Columbia as 24-point favorites. I would be very impressed if that ended up being the case. I'm leaning more towards the 14-point range in this game in Columbia's favor.
Okay, yeah, so I don't know too much about Oakleaf, but from what I do know of what you've described, I would probably lean, the 14-point range. I do think Oakleaf, they're probably, would you say are they a bubble top 50 team in Florida?
Yeah, I think that's a fair, I believe I actually did, I've had them honorable mention both in the preseason and now. So I would say that's probably a fair point. They could definitely. I definitely looking forward to seeing them play. They did beat Orange Park last week, who I did have in my top 50 by about 20 so points. I was very surprised, not only by them actually winning that, even though I thought they had a shot at, but the fact that they were able to pretty much blow Orange Park out. I did not expect that. Oakleaf may very well be the best team at Clay County. Very talented team. They, I believe, have like a 4 or 5 star guy on the offensive line, if I remember correctly, and I think they had a pretty solid pass rusher as well. So this will, they might even be like maybe a more balanced team than Trinity. To be honest, I just don't like. They're not going to be as strong in the secondary, but they do have some players, like talented players, a little bit more spread out.
Right. And so you'll see maybe a little bit, a few different looks than what Trinity, threw at you defensively. I have a feeling that they're when I've looked over on them, the box scores. I have a feeling what I'm seeing here, their strength might be their line and their linebackers. It looks like they shut down Orange Park's rushing game pretty good. I'm not saying Orange Park has the O-line or running backs to that of Columbia, but looks like they did try to carry it 27 times for only 60 yards, which is about 2 yards a carry. So that's just per Max Preps. While the passing was 9 for 18, 169 yards of passing. So maybe you might have a little more success through the air, which Columbia probably does that anyway. So just something to note. I happen to see looking over that game.
Yeah, I agree with. Like, I do expect a very good test out of Oakleaf. I know that it'll be probably like a pretty tough competition for us this week, and then of course we have to play that AA Christian School next week. So we get ourselves a small break next week in between having to face tough teams, because then we have Pine Forest the week after.
Right. So that'll be a pretty good balance for the schedule. The way it sounds, you get two, very good and probably good teams, and you kind of ease into it.
Another
the one I'm interested in the most is the Delray going up there, Atlantic. That's down the line though, so we'll get to that in a few weeks.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that game as well. Just because, like, I've never gotten the chance to see like a South Florida team like up close, and then again, I never got to really see a South Georgia school up close, and I found out how that was 2 weeks ago.
Right. So you were saying?
Another game like up here that caught my attention: Sandalwood traveling to the beach over in Fletcher.
Mm-hmm.
I know we've talked a little bit about Fletcher in the past. They do have a very good quarterback, as does Sandalwood. Fletcher, Devin Lingo, I believe is. I probably butchered his name, but I'm sure any Jacksonville person listening would probably know who I'm referring to. I did see. I believe he did see him pretty. He looked like a pretty solid quarterback last year. Probably one of the better ones that we faced last season. And Sandalwood, they got Jeff Sims, who's a Florida State commit. This one could end up being like a quarterback shootout potentially. I guess I'll the thing with Sandwood is it always seems like they always find a way like to just they never take advantage of the amount of talent they always have on the roster. Fletcher seems to be a program that is working their way a bit more up. I would say right now they're the favorite in their district, and I'm going to lean Fletcher at home by 4 to 7 points.
Okay. Yeah, so I know a little bit about those teams, not nearly as much as you. I have seen that with Sandalwood, so they do have some, probably consistently in the Jacksonville area, one of the more loaded rosters, but their record doesn't necessarily, reflect, success with that. Looking at these past week's games, what's a more impressive win? The Sandalwood 20-13 over Terry Parker, or the Fletcher and Bishop Cannon win 30-14?
I would have to kind of say
more impressive.
Honestly, I'm not sure I'm just not sure how good Terry Parker is right now. I've heard some people mention him as a potential sleeper. I still, I'm not sold on that yet. Bishop Kenny is usually a very good team. They were coming off the Kickoff Classic. Of course, yes, Kickoff Classics, I know. But they were coming off that Kickoff Classic shutout to Buchholz. I would still say that when you said it was 34-14, correct?
34-14. Fletcher beat Bishop Kenny. It was tied up at 7.5.
I would say a 20-point win is probably more impressive, because I would say Bishop Kenny, Terry Parker, they're probably about on the same tier per se. So, or maybe Bishop Kenny, or probably a little bit better. At least recently, I'm not exactly sold on what either team has this year yet. But I would still say Fletcher by 20 over Bishop Kenny was more impressive than Sandalwood winning by, I think it was 6 or 7 points over Terry Parker.
Right. So Sandalwood, this game is being played where? At Fletcher?
Yeah, it's playing Neptune Beach Fletcher.
Okay. I do see historically, since 2010, looks like Sandalwood has pretty much owned Fletcher. They stopped playing in 2015, and that was the last time that they met up. And Fletcher Fletcher has owned Sandalwood. But the last time they met, Sandalwood beat them 24-17 in 2015.
To be fair, that Fletcher team was, I believe they were a 5-5 or a 4-6 team that year.
Okay. Yeah. So no, I'm just trying to look at different angles here, as I'm limited to what I know of the Jacksonville area teams. It seems like these teams are probably pretty close. I'm gonna lean with the home team here in Fletcher.
Okay. And I got what you're saying. I just was pointing out because I do remember that Fletcher team because that was the team, they were in our district that year. In fact, us beating Fletcher at Fletcher was actually the game that clinched the district championship for Columbia that year.
Right. Okay. So they were pretty good that year.
Fletcher, they were. I would say they were okay that year. It was probably not their best years of late. Of the 4 teams that was in the district, by far their best team was the one they had last year.
Okay.
Another. This one may not end up being that close of a game, but because it was an out-of-state game up in the Freedom Bowl, I felt like it was worth mentioning. Well, I guess both of the next 2 games that we'll talk about were probably going to be blowouts. but they are free in bowl games. Winter Park facing Pickerington Central, Ohio. I don't know